Commentary of St. Augustine on the Gospel of John, chapter 14 following. And greater works than these shall he do. Than what? Pray? What we say that one is doing greater works than all that Christ did, who is working out his own salvation with fear and trembling? Philippians chapter 2 verse 12. A work which Christ is certainly working in him, but not without him, and one which I might, without hesitation, call greater than the heavens and the earth, and all, in both within the compass of our vision. For both heaven and earth shall pass away. Matthew chapter 24, verse 35. But the salvation and justification of those predestinated thereto, that is, of those whom he foreknew, of those whom he foreknows, shall continue forever. In the former there is only the working of God, but in the latter there is also his image. But there are also in the heavens thrones, governments, principalities, powers, archangels, and angels, which are all of them the work of Christ. And is it then greater works also than these that he does, who, with Christ working in him, is a co-worker in his own eternal salvation and justification? I dare not call for any hurried decision on such a point. Let him who can understand and let him who can judge whether it is a greater work to create righteous beings than to make righteous the ungodly. For at least if there is equal power employed in both, there is greater mercy in the latter. For this is the great mystery of godliness, which was manifested in the flesh, justified in the Spirit, seen of angels, preached unto the Gentiles, believed on in the world, received up into glory. 1 Timothy chapter 3 verse 16. But when he said, greater works than these shall he do, there is no necessity requiring us to suppose that all of Christ's works are to be understood. For he spoke perhaps only of these he was now doing, and the work he was doing at that time was uttering the words of faith, and of such works especially had he spoken just before when he said, the words that I speak unto you, I speak not of myself, but the Father that dwells in me, he does the works. His words accordingly were his words, and it is assuredly something less to preach the words of righteousness, which he did apart from us, than to justify the ungodly, which he does in such a way in us, that we also are doing it ourselves. It remains for us to inquire how the words are to be understood. Whatsoever you shall ask in my name, I will do. Because of the many things his believing ones ask and receive not, there is no small question claiming our attention. But as this discourse must now be concluded, we must allow at least a little delay for its consideration and discussion. Tractatus 73, again on the same passage. The Lord, by his promise, gave those whose hopes were resting on himself a special ground of confidence when he said, For I go to the Father, and whatsoever you shall ask in my name, I will do it. His proceeding, therefore, to the Father was not with any view of abandoning the needy, but of hearing and answering their petitions. But what is to be made of the words, whatsoever you shall ask, when we behold his faithful ones so often asking and not receiving? Is it, shall we say, for no other reason but that they ask amiss? For the Apostle James made this a ground of reproach when he said, "You ask and receive not, because you ask amiss, that you may consume it upon your lusts." James chapter 4 verse 3. What one therefore wishes to receive in order to turn to an improper use, God in his mercy rather refuses to bestow. Nay, more, if a man ask what would, if answered, only tend to his injury, there is surely greater cause to fear, lest what God could not withhold with kindness, he should give in his anger. Do we not see how the Israelites got to their own hurt what their guilty lusting craved? For while it was raining manna on them from heaven, they desired to have flesh to eat. Numbers chapter 11 verse 32. They disdained what they had and shamelessly sought what they had not, as if it were not better for them to have asked not to have their unbecoming desires gratified with the food that was wanting, but to have their own dislike removed and be made themselves to receive aright the food that was promised. For when evil becomes our delight, and what is good the reverse, we ought to be entreating God rather to win us back to the love of the good than to grant us the evil. Not that it is wrong to eat flesh, for the Apostle, speaking of these very things, says, "Every creature of God is good, and nothing to be refused, which is received with thanksgiving." 1 Timothy chapter 4 verse 4. But because, as he also says, it is evil for that man who eats with offense. Romans chapter 14 verse 20. And if so with offense to man, how much more so if to God, to whom it was no light offense on the part of the Israelites to reject what wisdom was supplying and ask for that which lust was craving, although they would not actually make the request, but murmured because it was wanting. But to let us know that the wrong lies not with any creature of God, but with obstinate disobedience and inordinate desire, it was not in swine's flesh that the first man found death, but in an apple. Genesis chapter 3 verse 6. And it was not for a fowl, but for a dish of pottage that Esau lost his birthright. Genesis chapter 25 verse 32. How then are we to understand whatsoever you shall ask, I will do it? If there are some things which the faithful ask, and which God, even purposely on their behalf, leaves undone? Or ought we to suppose that the words were addressed only to the apostles? Surely not. For what he has got the length of now saying is in the very line of what he had said before, "He that believes in me, the works that I do shall he do also, and greater works than these shall he do," which was the subject of our previous discourse, and that no one might attribute such power to himself, but rather to make it manifest that even these greater works were done by himself, he proceeded to say, "For I go to the Father, and whatsoever you shall ask in my name, I will do it." Was it the apostles only that believed on him? When therefore he said, "He that believes on me," he spoke to those among whom we also by his grace are included, who by no means receive everything that we ask. And if we turn our thoughts even to the most blessed apostles, we find that he who labored more than they all, yet not he, but the grace of God that was with him, 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 10. Besought the Lord thrice that the messenger of Satan might depart from him, and received not what he had asked. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 8. What shall we say, beloved? Are we to suppose that the promise here made, whatsoever you shall ask in my name, I will do it, was not fulfilled by him even to the apostles? And to whom then will ever his promise be fulfilled, if therein he has deceived his own apostles?